Welcome to Enloser. Here we'll be talking about weird, odd, creepy, and kind of horrifying stories. Today's story is about a young girl named Fatma, a Turkish girl, and her uncle. But before we get in, I need to give you just a little bit of backstory so you can understand it better in terms of our cultural and religious beliefs. Here, demons are called jinn, basically C-I-N, and people are so scared of them, they would rather call them the three-lettered ones. It is widely believed that these creatures, or these demons, are basically like us humans, only in a different plane. So they're from the family of the devil, you could say. They are made of smoke and fire, and they live lives like us. They have beliefs like us. Some believe in God, some don't, some pray, some don't pray. They eat, sleep, and even have families as we do. That's the belief. If you actually check all of the horror movies made in Turkey, they're literally based on these entities called jinn or three-lettered ones, but I'll refer to them as demons so you can understand it better. Our story starts with Fatma's uncle named Hassan. Now, Hassan, he was a gifted child. Even from his youth, he was able to sense certain entities or these beings, ghosts or other demonic figures. He would not know what they were, but he could sense them or sometimes even see certain things around. Now, his mother was very well aware of this. She knew that her son had some sort of psychic power or a sort of sixth, seventh sense that he could, sense these things. But she tried to keep it from everyone as well as her son. And the reason for this was people around here always believed and still do believe that if you can contact these demons, then you can kind of ask them for things because they have the power or they hold the sort of black magic that can give you all kinds of power, riches in this world. And people believed in this, which is why she kept it from everyone around her. She didn't want people knocking on her door asking her son to, contact these entities for money or treasure or other things. His gift, no doubt, came from his grandmother. His grandmother was also a psychic. She would see her grandson kind of sometimes ask certain questions to things that weren't really there, like, what are you doing here? Who are you or what are you? Because he was still young, she wouldn't really, indulge in this ability, but she would tell him that he was special. One day, she was even sitting at Hassan's bedside and, giving him a good night's kiss. There was this black figure that Hassan saw kind of floating in the air right next to her, and then it just dissolved, just disappeared. And his grandmother said it was okay. She smiled and said they wouldn't hurt him, he didn't have to worry about it. And then she just kissed him goodnight and left. His grandmother passed away when he was around 13 years old. That same night, after all of the funeral, she did come to his room. Still, she appeared there as a ghostly figure. He was shocked, scared, but he couldn't really say anything. He didn't want to yell. He was just trying to understand whether it was all a dream. And then he closed his eyes and just counted to 3. 1, 2, 3. And he opened them, and she was gone. So he thought it was all a dream, but he did in fact see her that night. And thus, as he grew older, he became more interested in the idea of this. And this is called havas in Turkish, maybe even Arabic. Havas is the intelligence or the research of these entities. It's basically like a spiritual science. There is actually a study for these kinds of things, not official, but you can find books about them. So he ends up going to Afghanistan, he goes to Egypt, Arabia, he goes to these countries and kind of does his research. He finds books that are related to this spiritual science called Havas. These books hold knowledge about these entities. It talks about them, what they're capable of, how you can maybe summon them, how you can protect yourself from them with incantations, or spells, or certain prayers. Eventually, though, he gets old and he moves back to his village where he just wants to spend the rest of his days in peace. When 3 villagers hear of his return and decide to pay him a visit, they come to him with this sort of treasure map, or what they believe to be a treasure map. They're not able to really understand what the map says, so they come to him to ask for his help and if he was maybe able to translate it. He first hesitates, Hassan. He's actually been away from these things for the last few years, and he's not really sure that he wants to get back into those things. Within the story, there is a story that Fatma has decided to not share because it was too personal. That maybe something had happened in her uncle's past that she didn't think was rightful to share. Something more personal, which is why I can't really include it here. But something had happened and he didn't really want to get back into this kind of things. So he says, no, I really can't. I don't want to do it. So the 3 villagers, they leave. But Hassan, on that same evening, when he's walking around the house, going towards the bathroom, he realizes they had left the treasure map on the table. At first, he thinks, all right, they forgot it here, and I'll just give it back to them the next day. He knows where they live. It's a small village, most people know each other. But then curiosity kind of starts to spark within him. He kind of feels the need to just go and look at the map one more time. It couldn't really hurt. So he goes to the table, he looks at the map again, and it kind of reminds him of those studies that he had, and he did see similar maps. And he knows actually which book to open to kind of translate what the map says. He starts kind of reading the map, just a few words, and he feels that sort of tingly excitement within himself. He just lets the map back on the table and he says, no, all right, no, I can't do this. I don't want to get back into this thing. He goes to the bathroom, kind of washes his face, cold water on his face. He looks at the mirror and then he sees something. He sees the wrinkles in his face. He's gotten old. And how many years does he have left? He's in his 50s or 60s at that point. And he thinks to himself, well, there's not really much left. He doesn't really have a family. He doesn't have a child. He does have, his sister, and his sister's pregnant. He's going to have a niece, which is all great things, but he doesn't really have a family of his own. He's living alone. It's as though you can see life's marks on his face. And when he sees this, he realizes he's always been destined to do these kinds of things, to do this research, to be in that kind of dark side of things, the paranormal. He goes back to the desk, he takes the map, goes to his own work desk where his books are just all over the place. He's not really a tidy person. And he just takes those books. There's so much dust on them because he's really never touched them for months even. He just left them there thinking, I'll throw them away, but he never really did. Maybe he just didn't want to. So he just blows the dust away from those books, opens them up, and feeling just the rush of the blood in his veins, he feels alive again, sort of. And he tries and translates the map. It takes him the entire night. And at some point, during the translation process, trying to understand where the map leads, he hears noises from the bathroom. This is around 3-4 a.m. He gets up, he walks to the bathroom, kind of tired, his eyes are bloodshot red. And he walks there and he takes a peek to the bathroom. He has this candlelight in his hands, holds it a little bit further ahead into the bathroom, and he sees a somewhat dark figure kind of slouched over his toilet. It's sobbing. It's kind of shaking and sobbing. And he instantly knows what it is or what it's trying to do. It's trying to scare Hassan from continuing on this journey. It's trying to warn him. But he does not get scared. he just feels more excited. It's a good thing he doesn't have to go to the bathroom right now, because that thing is just slouched over there. Of course, he can use his spells, he uses prayers, which is exactly what he does. He has most of them memorized, and he just says some things, and this black figure slowly dissipates, just goes away, vanishes in thin air. The next day, he contacts those villagers, and he tells them, I have your map, I have it translated, we're good to go. Now, the villagers say, well, it's our map, we don't really want you to come with us. But Hassan says, I translated it, and I want to be a part of this journey. So they agree. If it's really a treasure, they would rather have it split to 4 than have nothing at all. There's one detail that they didn't tell Hassan, where this treasure map had came from. They told Hassan that it was inherited, that it was one of their grandmothers, and it came out from her things. But that wasn't true. This map had come from within a grave. It was a funeral day, and the villagers were also there, as they were putting the body into the ground. And maybe an important detail here is, in Islamic beliefs, the bodies are not being buried within a coffin. They're just put around a cloth, you could even say, a sort of white cloth, very thin, almost mummification, but not really. And they're just put in the ground with that cloth. Nothing around them, no coffin, no nothing. So when they put the body there, one of them sees this sort of box, like a wooden box, but it looks very old and antique. He realizes that that's something, right? He thinks maybe that's a treasure or something. And he can't really grab it during the funeral because that would just take too much attention. So they just bury the body. And that same night, he comes back with his shovel and digs in past that body that they just buried that day. And then he grabs that box, and within that box comes this parchment of paper, which has the hidden treasure map on it, which then Hassan translates. Hassan is not aware of this, but he doesn't really care, because as he's translating, he does realize this is no ordinary map. So they grab their shovels and they set out to go to this location. And the location isn't quite far away from the village, but it takes a few hours of walking. They arrive at the spot just before dusk. It's about to become nighttime. And this is a very empty area, away from the village. It's almost deserted, a few trees around. They put their shovels into the ground. They start digging where they believe the treasure is hidden. But just as the shovel touches the ground, a wind starts to blow, and it becomes stronger and stronger. The leaves of the trees just start to kind of rustle. They can hear it. They can sense something. Hassan kind of feels the air being very thick. He feels suddenly that there's things around him. There is a presence that he can't quite figure out. He knows there's something, but for now it's just the wind. He tells them to stop digging and kind of looks around. But the wind just gets stronger and stronger. They're barely able to stand, and the wind starts to pick up this dust and the dirt on the ground and just throws it around, almost like a dust storm. They're hardly able to see now because it's just too windy and too dusty around the air. They can't really open their eyes, and it becomes dark real quick. Suddenly it's like nighttime. You can hear the thunder. But that's not the only thing that they hear. They start hearing these noises, these cries of animals and human laughter, screams of pain. It's so disturbing that they just feel sort of this pain within them. Only just by hearing the sound. Nothing is really touching them. Nothing is hurting them. The fear is enough to make them just shiver right then and there. And then suddenly, they start hearing thousands of horses, almost like an army approaching right towards them. The galloping horses, just the sound is growing louder and louder. they know an army is coming, so they start running away, and somehow they make it. They make it out of there. Even though it seems like they dodged a bullet there, Hassan does not want to give up. If anything, this has made the flame within him spark even, stronger. His greed and his pride take over. Fear is basically non-existent in his soul right now. The villagers are scared, but he is not. He wants to fight whatever this is. He wants to reach that treasure. Not because he needs the money or, he just decided to become rich. He feels alive again. He feels excited again. When he looks in the mirror, suddenly he doesn't see those marks anymore. He sees that young, strong, and brave man from his past, just ready to take on whatever comes next. So he takes out other books that were still in dust, that were in the back room, never used, in boxes. He picks them all up, spiders around them, takes it, puts it on his desk, and he starts reading. This time he wants to be prepared. He wants to have certain prayers ready. He doesn't want to be surprised with that sort of attack again. So he starts preparing these amulets with prayers and spells in them, and these beads with marks that he knows or he's reading through the book. He makes sure that he does a necklace, which would be, around his neck, and within that necklace is a prayer to protect them from these demonic figures. And he makes 3 or 4 of them, makes sure that the villagers would then take it and also put them around their necks. So he meets with those villagers. One of them decides he doesn't want to be a part of this anymore. He says, I'm out. I don't care. Even if you find a treasure, don't ever call me again. One of them doesn't return. It's just Hassan and 2 villagers now. He gives them the beads and the necklaces with the evil eyes and the prayers on them, and they're ready to go again. This time, they decide to leave a bit early because they don't want to arrive there when it's nighttime. They want to make sure there's still some sunlight so they can start their digging and finish it before the dark arrives. Now, why this matter is, there's a saying in Turkish that goes like this: the evil of the day is still better than the good of the night. What this translates to is, whatever good happens at night is probably still worse than whatever bad would happen during the day. That's how dangerous the night is. So this time they go early, they're ready, they start digging, but immediately as they start, the wind starts to blow again. The same kind of darkness appears even though it's broad daylight. They can't see, it's just dusty, and it's scary again. These sounds are there. They freak out, and once again they run away for their lives, and they make it. So Hassan decides he's gonna do something that he's never done before. He's going to reach out to them, to the demons. He lights a candle, and he says the prayers that he knows will summon these entities. Hassan knows full well that once you reach these things and ask them for something, they will always ask for something in return. There's nothing that they would give you freely. But he doesn't care. He feels disappointed. He feels as though he's disappointed the villagers. He's this wise man that was all around the world, that gathered all of this knowledge to be able to solve these kinds of things, to be able to communicate and to protect himself and the people around him from these things. And somehow he was not able to help out these villagers, himself even. His pride is too strong. He doesn't care what they ask in return. He knows he can defer it. Because this time he's just going to be in his own zone. When he goes there, in this empty space, this field, he knows that they're all gathered there. There's more than just one demon. They're all there. The power and the strength is on their side. But when he's on his own, he can definitely protect himself easier from these entities. So he lights a candle and he speaks the words, and then the candle blows out. The air becomes thick again. He can feel the heaviness. He feels tired. And then that thing, the darkness within the darkness, somewhat of a black figure, appears before him. It talks to him in a sort of weird, different tongue He wants the treasure. He has a treasure map in front of him and he shows it. Now the thing, it wants something in return, but what it wants might surprise you. Remember when I said that it is widely believed that these things even have families and children of their own? The idea is, and if you search for stories, you might find some, that some people even get married to these creatures. There's female and male versions, and sometimes they can actually obsess over you and start haunting you. What this demon wants, and it is a female demon, it wants to marry Hassan once the treasure is given. Hassan agrees with this. He says, all right, I will marry you. Doesn't matter. Because in his mind, he thinks, I have the spells, I have the prayers, I can defer this demon easily. And once again, with a lot of hesitation from the villagers and disbelief, because they don't really trust Hassan anymore, they do go to the place. They start digging with no issues at all. Nothing is happening. They get the treasure, a lot of gold and certain antiques. They all become rich. And they live their rich lives for a while. Hassan, immediately once he gets back, says his prayers and starts using these spells to protect himself from this demonic creature. And he's able to do so. But the demon had warned him before that if he were to go back on his word, it would come for him. And it would come for his entire family. Over the years, 2 of his friends, the villagers, die of mysterious reasons. There's no explanation really. One of them found disfigured in his bedroom. The other one suddenly dropped dead as he was walking on the street. It is said to be a heart attack, and for the disfigured person, it is not known. They both were healthy. They both had no issues whatsoever in their lives. It was going all great, but they died. Hassan hears this. He knows that he's next. They're coming for him. But he knew that already. That's why every single night he would take hours sitting at his desk, reading from the books, reading his prayers, and saying these spells to shield himself from these demons and their attacks. One night, Hassan is preparing for the rituals he's about to make, for the prayers, and he's getting ready. Somebody's banging at the door very loudly, and he just stops and goes to the door, opens it. It's very late, and it's one of the villagers' kid, just a young person, telling him he needs to rush to his sister immediately because she had her daughter. Her situation was critical, that she could die. So without really thinking, without really even second guessing this, because she was due, he just runs out of the house. He doesn't even take his keys. He runs out of the house and runs through the streets and goes to her sister's house where she would have had the baby and starts banging on the door. Her husband opens the door and he's surprised to see him. And when Hassan looks inside, he sees that his sister is in the living room sitting, all good. She's still pregnant with the baby. So he immediately realizes, he thinks back to that moment where he saw the young boy screaming that his sister was about to die. And he realizes that he hadn't really looked directly at his feet. His eye had seen that it had reverse feet. And it is believed that when these demons take shape of humans, they would always have a disfigured part of their body showing as a warning. Once he realizes this, he knows he's too late for his rituals and his prayers, but he still needs to try and make it. He starts running back, but as he's running, this demon is able to reach him and touch him. Now the prayers from before and the prayers he has in his mind do protect him from an instant death, but he does get paralyzed, and that's how he will spend the rest of his days, paralyzed, unable to move, and he dies in 2013. Now, even though Hassan had died, all of the prayers that he made Back in his day, all of the rituals, they were strong spells, and time was wearing them down, but they were still protecting his family. And they would in the coming days. Fatma is born, his niece, and she lives with her family until she's ready to go to elementary school, which is when they sent her to boarding school. In her childhood, her mother tells her part of the stories of her uncle. She wants her to know that he was really hardworking, that he was a really great guy, and she does tell about some of the disturbing things without going into much detail. Now, these disturbances, they still keep happening in the family. The warning was, even if you die, we will still hunt your family. And the hauntings continue. Disturbances continue. Nothing deadly, but still disturbances. And that can be exhausting. Now, when she's young, her mother always tries to keep her away from these stories. So Fatma would just eavesdrop as her mother would be speaking on the phone, hearing about these instances or these scares or disturbings, and gasping at the phone. And Fatma would be really interested and curious as to what was going on. She didn't really have the gift of her uncle, but she was still seeing certain black figures sometimes. This was to disturb her, to reach her. But her mother had taught her certain prayers. And with those certain prayers, she was able to feel more calm and more safe. So she grows old, she gets used to these kinds of paranormal things. It's not really as disturbing, but if she sees them, she just prays and they go away. When she started working, that's when she was able to afford her first apartment as a rent. So she moves into that house and she's living alone now. And this is the first time, mind you, that she's living alone. Before this, she was sleeping with tens of, until 50 people in the same room, in the same big school. And she never really felt alone, which is maybe why she was never disturbed by a darker or stronger presence. Because these demons would find it's much easier to scare a person when they're on their own rather than when they're as a group. So she comes home one day from work, and this is just a month later after she'd moved into this new apartment, and she feels this really heavy air around the house. She feels instantly tired. She walks into the house and she feels as though she just wants to fall on the ground and just kind of fall asleep right then and there. The energy has just left her body suddenly. So she thinks, all right, this is probably because of work, traffic, everything. I'm getting used to this new apartment. I'm just gonna take a shower. So she goes into the shower, decides to just, wash off this negative energy. Hot water does help a little bit to make her feel better, but she still feels this kind of negative energy around the house and even in the bathroom. Now, because of boarding school, she was used to locking the door of the bathroom. So even though she was living alone now, she'd still lock the door of her bathroom. This is important because as she was showering, something or someone started to turn the doorknob. Someone is aggressively jiggling the doorknob, trying to get in. And she immediately turns off the water to hear it better. She's 100% sure someone is trying to get in. She looks from the curtain, kind of pulls the shower curtain to the side, and she looks at this doorknob that's kind of shaking and about to break. She freaks out immediately. That's when she realizes there's some water on the ground having splashed from the shower right in front of the door. And with the help of the light, she's able to actually see a sort of reflection that is on the other side of the door from underneath that opening. And it's a sort of a black, dark figure that's kind of shaky, like it's electrified or something. It's just this pitch black thing. It's kind of shaking, and whatever it is, it's trying to open the door very, very aggressively, and she instantly knows that whatever this thing is, it's not human. She starts saying her prayers, but it doesn't help. This thing doesn't disappear like it used to. She still is kind of trying to whisper under her breath the incantations, just and kind of praying that this thing goes away, trying to pray for God to protect her from whatever that thing is. She's got her towel around her, but she's still shivering. She's freezing now. She's so scared. So she turns around. She turns her back to the door. She just doesn't want to see if it's able to open the door. And she kind of looks up to this window that's connecting her house to the next door house's bathroom. And in the middle, there's this empty space that's basically just to, help with the airflow. But it's possible to yell from that window to the other house. And that's exactly what she does. She knows her neighbor, Miss Nuria. This is a very kind and warm lady. So she slowly steps on her toes to get closer to this window. And she kind of just start yelling. Just help, help. It's difficult for her voice because it cracks of fear, but she's just screaming her throat out. Miss Nuria, in a few seconds, actually responds back because she's home, thankfully, and she responds back, Fatma, are you okay? What's going on? Is someone trying to get in? Is someone in your house? Are you safe? She's also freaking out on the other side because she doesn't know what's going on. Fatma just yells, I don't know what it is. I think it's one of them. Please help me. And Miss Nuria, she's still not sure what she means, but she assumes something or someone is in her house trying to hurt her. So she says, all right, I'm coming. I'm coming. My husband is here. We're coming. But just as Miss Nuria is leaving the window to come help her, the doorknob explodes inside the bathroom. It hits the wall and it hits the ground. It makes that metal noise. And the door opens. It just smashes on the wall. And immediately it gets super cold. Super cold and very, very negative. The energy feels so exhaustive. She can feel her soul almost dripping away. She's shivering all over. Her back still turned towards the door. She's not able to see whatever that thing is. She can only hear a sort of dog-like breathing, like a... And she fears for her life. Tears start coming from her eyes. Her heartbeat is rising like crazy. It's just beating like crazy. But she just wants to fall asleep in that moment. She just wants to let go and just let her body just be free almost. She slowly starts to turn around because she doesn't want to turn her back to this thing, whatever it is, anymore, because she doesn't feel safe. So she starts turning around slowly, kind of closing, keeping her eyes peeled, but kind of closed. And she turns around and she sees this thing, this black figure kind of floating in the air. It has wide, shoulders, and it's very tall. Its arms start from wherever the legs are. Basically, the shoulders are at a knee level. That's the first thing she realizes. It's almost like a human-like figure, but not quite. The only thing that's not completely black or dark or this electrifying, smoky presence is its feet. Its feet are literally human-like, but moldy and dirty. She can't yell. She can't scream. Her voice is just tangled within her. Like, she can't make any noise. That's how scared she is. And that's how shocked she is. She's just shivering. And once she glances at this thing, she immediately tries to look somewhere else because she can feel the power kind of leave her body. Even though she's clenching her fists really strong, trying to hold on, trying to not fall asleep, because she knows if she falls asleep, she might never wake up again. So she's trying really hard and fighting. In that moment, when she looked at this thing, her energy was so much less. She felt almost as though she was about to snap and fall asleep immediately. So she looks away, but with the corner of her eye, she can still see this shape, oddly breathing. She's freaking out. She's shivering. But as she does, this thing turns towards the bathroom mirror for some reason. It turns on the water. It kind of splashes the water on itself. She doesn't quite understand what it's trying to do. All she knows is she's not trying to look at it. and she's still whispering those incantations, those prayers from under her breath, and trying to kind of stay strong, not to fall asleep. And as she does so, this thing suddenly just kind of dissolves into this bathroom mirror, goes into that bathroom mirror, kind of disappears in there. The black smoke suddenly gone, the cold gone, and that negative energy is completely gone. She feels suddenly as though a really heavy burden has been lifted from her. She feels relaxed again. She can breathe again. Just a moment before, she had hard time breathing. It was almost as though something was pushing against her chest. With this opportunity, she leaves the bathroom, and there she sees Miss Nuria and her husband. They immediately come to her, hug her, and try to calm her down. She's crying hysterically, of course. In the next few minutes, Miss Nuria, goes with her in her room, and she just dresses up real quick. And in the meantime, her husband, who knows one or two things about these demons or these creatures, he just looks around the house. He says the prayers that he knows, and he looks in the bathroom. He checks the mirror, and when he comes back, he tells them that whatever that thing is gone right now, and that they seem safe. What's weird is Miss Nuria tells her when she screamed and told them to come, they immediately came. It was maybe 15 to 20 seconds by the time they were inside her house. Fatma doesn't quite understand that, because when she was in the bathroom with that thing, it felt as though hours had passed, almost as though it had been time. Miss Nuria's husband suggests that they call something called huddam. Now this huddam is basically like an exorcist, you could say. It specializes in dealing with these demons and certain creatures, ghosts, or hauntings, similar to what Hassan was capable of, but more on the defensive side rather than doing research or trying to find treasures and etc. These people, they're only programmed, they're only taught how to defend yourself or your loved ones or people who are in need from these creatures. But remember when I said that these demons are like us, they have like families, some of them believe in God, some of them defy God. Well, this Huddam has friends of these demons, such that they also believe in God. They're on the good side, you could say. So he's going to be using those to defer these evil ones. So they come the next day. Huddam, this Huddam person, comes the next day, and he talks to Fatma and he explains what's going to happen. She needs to be present for them to be able to exorcise these devilish or evil demons, because otherwise they can't really call upon these things as they're haunting her. And he tells her that, if we don't do this, they will continue disturbing you. They might not hurt you, they might not do anything to you, but they will present themselves to you until you're worn down to be able to be hurt. So she agrees, and the way she explains it is that this part felt almost like out of a Hollywood movie. Inside her house, this darkness, this dusty, stormy kind of a feel, screams, these loud noises, the good side of the demons with Huddam fighting against these evil-like demons. She wasn't sure what she was looking at. It was all kind of dark, but she could feel the presence, and she felt so tired after that. Once it was gone, once it was done though, she's never really seen any of them again. She doesn't know if she ever will, but if she does, I wish her best of luck. And God bless. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. It is allegedly a story that has happened. There's many more that I will be hopefully sharing in the future. We'll do true crime, stories that seem impossible or weird or odd or almost like a parallel universe. All kinds of things will be here and told face to face. So be sure to stick around. Make sure you leave a like if you did like it. If you have any suggestions, I'm always open to criticism. Please leave them in the comments below, and I'll try my best to make these videos better, more intimate, or just do my research better. Whatever it is you want, tell me and I'll try to work on it. Until then, make sure you subscribe with the bell notifications on. I hope to post every single week. Now, we're gonna have a really creepy and scary ukulele song, so please enjoy. And until next week, stay safe, stay eerie. Tried to walk home last night, really thought I'd be fine, but then a sudden thump behind. Wait, is that an alien? What was that sound I heard? Jane, please stop fooling around. What do you mean wash the dishes? Do you realize what time it is? I'm getting the creeps again. Look at these goosebumps on my skin. If I'm not back by 8, the delivery guy probably did it. Now I must fade in the dark, get away from everyone. Oh Jane, I'm so afraid. I'm begging you to stay. Is someone watching me as I'm wide asleep? Getting those goosebumps again. Wait, am I peeing? I'm so scared that I'm peeing.